just under 350 plays board games that we played in 2023. And today we are going to share you our top games of 2023. And hello everyone, I'm Stella and this is Tarrant from Meeple University. We've complied, we've played again, and we are waiting until the last second, the last minute to do it. And we're actually doing this in New Year's Day. So Happy New Year's.
Yes.
And hopefully you had a great year and then great 2024 to come. And here we go.
Here we go. This is our look back at 2023, all the best new games that we've played, and I don't know, I think it was a pretty good year overall in games.
Really hard for us to decide which games we're going to play. So I will have top 20, and Tarrant this year will have top 10 instead of his usual top 5. Lots of great games this year, and I'm also going to do a special mention for a few games.
Yeah, overall I think I quite liked 2023 in gaming. I think it was a step up on the last couple of years in terms of the overall average quality of games. I think we played a lot of games in that good to great category. Maybe not so many that reached up to excellent compared with the last couple of years, but a really good solid amount of good to great games.
I think what happened is probably last year people starting to catch up with, okay, this mechanic is important, this mechanic is popular, but now they realize maybe that they need new mechanic, they need something different to actually step up their own games for 2023. So I think that's why we have lots and lots of great games in 2023. Now what we're going to do, we're going to start with my number 20.
And special mentions first.
My special mention first, and then my number 20 up to 11. And then we're going to go back and forth for our top 10.
Yes.
And I do have 20 games this year because I could not simply pick 10 games for 2023. There's so many great games, and even picking 20 is hard. Like, in truth, I was like, oh, this one's good, this one's good. Okay, I have to pick, all right, not 10, but 20.
You're just indecisive.
Yeah, I'm indecisive. That's the real reason. And also, I would put everything, combine everything together. So, doesn't matter what type of game it is, I put it in that one giant list. And that's 20 games.
And as always, as we always say for our games of the month as well, we have come by these games through various means. We have been paid for content on some of them. We have received review copies of some of them. This is a fully opinion-based video.
This is unpaid. This is an unpaid video, and it is completely just our subjective opinion. My first special mention is Ark Nova with the Marine Worlds expansion. I don't have the box anymore because we're trying to save space. Tarrant threw out the box of Marine Worlds. But Ark Nova was the game that was released not 2023, but I started playing it 2023. And we played Marine Worlds expansion in 2023 because it was released also in 2023. This is like, we had a late night, all right? Last night we stayed up for the New Year's Eve. So I think it's special mention because technically not a board game and not the board game of this year, or last year I should say. And this is a great expansion, Marine World. So hence the special mentions.
Yeah, and you've really taken to this game this year. No doubt it would have been very high on your list, if not top of your list, if you'd played it in the year
That's correct.
Year it was out.
That's correct. We still played Ark Nova on Board Game Arena, and somebody mentioned in the comments on our review of Marine Worlds that Marine Worlds is going to be on Board Game Arena as well. So woohoo, 2024, hopefully. And that is my special mention. The second special mention is Last Light, which is a game by Grey Fox Games and by my friend Roy Cannaday. It's nothing to do with the fact that I know Roy from Dice Tower. It's a game that I played only once at Gen Con. After Gen Con, it was a board game evening at Gen Con, and then Roy taught us Last Light. And it's not usually the type of games that I play, it's a 4X games, which is surprising, but it has got such great mechanics, and downtime is really low because everyone everyone's playing their turn simultaneously and selecting the cards and then resolve one by one. And then at the end of the round, and then before the next round, the main board rotates and it's got the planets and everything. It's just so cool. And that's my special mention. Just because I feel like I want to play more and I want to play with Tarrant. So, hence a special mention. My number 20 of 2023 is Path of Civilization. This is a civilization game. I usually do like civilization game. This has got great engine build, as you probably expect in civilization games. It doesn't have a lot of, well, it has some area control, but there's no map as per se to actually put your meeples on. But the most exciting thing is the game. Each round you choose 4 cards, or you choose it from the last round, but you choose 4 cards for your action. And that's determine your action. So you want to get resource, you want to get the action. So the cards has got multi-use, left one or right one, which resources you want to get. Or also depends on how many populations you have, of course, as civilization game. And this is great like that.
Yeah, it's very much on the light to medium scale of a civilization.
Yes.
It's very track advancement focused.
Yeah, very kind of like that good feeling when you try to engine build your track, and then from there you get something else. And that really simple actions on your turn by just putting the cards to using multi-use cards, that makes it number 20 for me. But number 19 is Fable, the Spirit Lands. This was kind of like a small release on Gen Con, I think. And this has got this clever mechanic. You draft cards where you have to pay resources, but then you are able to put the cards on the common tableau of cards in whatever order you want, so that it will benefit your meeple to advance. And then on the card, you will stop by and then get resources, get everything. The goal of the game is to collect who has got the most red books. And you do it by conversion. It's almost like
Century.
A
little bit of a Century vibe to it, in the way that, in fact, I think the color progression is the same as Century Golem.
Yes.
You go from sort of 2 yellows to a green and 2 greens to blue, 2 blues to a red. I think it's the other order, actually.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But in this one, you don't get individual points for things. You're just trying to get the most of the red books.
Yes. It's very clever the way you can slide cards into other people's card. You cut off their ways of their meeples, so that it could either continue or it could stop if the path's not connected. And then you have special powers that you get from the start, and you have opportunity to add another power during the game, and there are different scenarios, so slightly different flavor to the games as well. And that's Fable, the Spirit Lands. My number 18 of 2023 is After Us. This is an Essen release, but we got it before Essen, or probably
so.
Gen Con, actually. I'm not too sure. Anyway, this is a great game. This is a deck building game. I do love my deck building. And you would receive 4 cards in a turn, which you order from left to right. And then each time you make a complete box from 2 cards, or even like this box inside 1 card, then you get the resources or the point conversion. So technically it's a race game. The first to 40 points will win the game. I still play this game on Board Game
Just
Arena.
80 points.
Sorry, 80 points, sorry, yes. I still played After Us on Board Game Arena because it's really quick. It's actually the perfect game on Board Game Arena because everything's automated, like what resources you get, and there's options for takesy backsy, which is like, this is great. Like, oh no, I don't want this. I actually want this resource. So, I mean, obviously this nothing to do with the fact that I love the game, but it's a really nice, quick tableau building, and you can trash cards, you can strategize on getting the points, you can strategize on repeating your actions in the cards that you get. So After Us, it's really great.
Yeah, it actually is. I think it's a perfect board game arena game because there is a lot of simultaneous play.
Yes.
It's actually very little interaction, but each round everyone's doing simultaneous play over a couple of phases, and it lets you kind of do things at your own pace. It's almost like it was built for Board Game Arena.
Yes.
For me, and I think this, it didn't make my top 10. It wasn't far outside it, and it's kind of, we talk a lot in our reviews about how I often say I like a lot of interaction. I like medium interaction Euros.
Yes, yeah.
I like to have some sort of at least fear that someone else will take away my option rather than that they'll attack me directly.
Yeah.
This is kind of like that ecos style race where you're just racing side by side. You don't interact very much, but you're watching how fast other players are going and trying to keep pace. And for a game in that style, it's a very good one.
My number 17 is Archaeos Society. This is a re-implementation from Atmos, which we have not played yet, so I can't really compare. Some people like Atmos better, maybe. I've heard that they like the dude on the map, sort of like area control bit.
Yeah, it's sort of the same core mechanism, but
Yes.
with more of an area control map basis instead of this, which is more of a track advancement. So
Yes.
a bit less direct and less interactive.
Which I don't mind at all. Like, I'm always a little bit too ginger usually when it comes to area control, so I'm perfectly happy with no area control. But what I like most about this, so this is a drafting card. Well, not drafting card where you're trying to match. It's also a set collection, so where you try to match to get the points. The big twist is that when you actually match it, when you actually play your cards and not drafting into your hand, you have to discard the rest of your hands. Hence, it's a really tough decision when you think of it, right? Like, I got like two potential great match, and then you want to play this one, but then you have to discard this one.
And it's discarding to an open tableau, which other players can then take from. You've got the opportunity to take that back as well, but it does essentially make them open for all.
Yes. So most points wins, and then there are different tracks as well that you're trying to advance by, part of it is matching the set of cards, and they are different. Like, there are different ways, different cards you can play, different track advancement, and then each one is triggered in different ways. So there's so many replayabilities.
Has its own little power.
Yes.
It might make tracks more easy. It might make sets more easy to collect, or bigger sets, or things like that.
Great game, Archaeos Society. My number 16 is The Mind Soulmates. Now, you've heard of The Mind, hopefully. If you're not, then this is a cooperative game where you play without communication. You have to put or play the cards in order from the high to low, low to high, depending on which domain you play, or like multiple. But this, I thought, is just another version of The Mind, but it's not. It has puzzle deduction in it, which makes it really good. I mean, I enjoy this more than the other domains, for sure.
Yeah, so in the original Mind, everyone had cards from 1 to 99, and you would play them face up. In this one, you have numbers from 1 to 50, but you play them face down. And at the end of a play, one player is checking them, and if you don't get them in order, that player gets to reveal one of the numbers and then shuffles the cards back up and deals them out. So you're gradually gaining information about what cards are in the set that you're playing, and you play the same numbers until you get them in order.
Tarrant is the rules guy, so he can explain rules better than me, better than lots of people. So if he jumps in, I'll let him, because he's just awesome. I would probably take 10 minutes to explain that. You'll take 2 minutes. So The Mind's Soulmates, really great. It feels different than the other domains, and the puzzle deduction cooperatively, it's great. So here it is. Number 15 is Orion Duel. We have not played Orion, if there is such thing as Orion. I don't know if such thing.
I don't think there is. I don't
know, just say duel.
I haven't established one.
No, but this is a dual abstract game where you trying to meet one of the 3 objectives. You need to connect from side to side on the common board by placing your tiles. But the tiles, most of the tiles has got other players' color as well.
Yes, most of them are 3 hex pieces, 2 of yours and one of your
others. Yeah, so it's kind of like tricky. You're kind of like helping other people or your opponent as well. And the second objective, you need to connect continuous 4 galaxies of your color. And then the third one is to sync other players to get their color tile to connect to 3 wormholes.
Black holes.
Wormholes, black holes. It's so great. This is probably the game that we played the most 2 players of in 2023. And it's also on Board Game Arena, so it's easy to play.
Indeed.
It's just probably one of the best two-player abstract games that I've played. It's really simple rules. The strategy is really deep. I really highly recommended this. This has got not really a lot of theme. Probably, if I like abstract game, it will probably be my number one. It's probably like, or maybe like, we will do top 10 of two-player games ever. So I reckon this is going to be in it. My number 14 is Kutnahora, the City of Silver. This is a Euro game as in release, and what I most like about it is the way that you do your turn is by card play. I always like Concordia. It's not quite like Concordia, but in a round you have certain amount of cards. You play 2 cards to trigger 2 actions. 2 cards, and then the third one is 1 card. So you play 5 cards out of the 8 cards, and each card has got 2 sides. So you want to choose this one and forego the other one, repeating this bottom action for this round. Yeah. And then there's a lot of competitiveness in the actual gameplay as well. So you build mines, and you're trying to. It's an economic game where building mines and building things changes the price of certain things, and not everyone has got ability to build certain buildings. So somebody might able to build beer, and then not everyone can build beer. So that person and another player will have economy on the beer, for example. So that makes it like it's kind of like economy, but then you have to balance it with everything else. That's how you get money, by trying to sell the beer, but then you want other things as well, and just a lot of goodness in this one.
Yeah, it's a highly interactive game because a lot of the points come from where you place your tiles on a common board. A lot of the prices come from where you place your tiles on a common board and which tiles you place. There's also there's an area where you're building up the cathedral, and they come with some quite powerful bonuses, but the sequence is very important, so you need to get in at the right time. So a lot of timing in this game.
Yep. And if we have other videos for any of the games we mentioned here in this video, I'll link it down below so you can find out more if you do want to find out more about it. And if you've enjoyed this video, if you could please give the like button, say hello in the comments, and let us know what's your highlight of 2023. And let's go to the next video. My number 13 is The Witcher Old World. I don't know if I might be a little biased because I love to see the Witcher series. I have not read the books yet. I have not played the video games yet. But this is a great story-based game with engine build and one of the smartest battle mechanic I've seen. It's Euro type of battle, so there's no dice. So this is the highlight. I'm going to mention the highlight first, all right? So, which is, again, we do have the video, check in the description below. So the battle is done by playing cards and matching banners from the cards that you played previously to the cards that you play next. Okay. Plus the engine building of your stats. Great. That makes The Witcher Old World is in my top 20.
Yeah, it's kind of a deck build, hand management kind of battle mechanism, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Funnily, you think of this as part of our different approaches to games. I think you think of this as a story-driven game because you get a lot of choices where you get a card and you read the top of it and then you choose one option. I see this is the closest thing I've ever played to old school Talisman because
it's totally different, but yes.
It's not roll to move, but you're kind of moving around the board and you're picking up cards, and those cards are going to start to level up your skills or maybe harm you a little bit, and you're building up to the point that you then go attacking things. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, if the story is taking too long, you can just strip that out and you can just draw a card like an adventure card in old school Talisman and resolve it that way. And I think once you've run out of stories, this game is still very playable in that way.
Yeah. Well, speaking about old school, I used to play lots of Diablo, like 1, 2, 3. And I haven't played the latest one. I bought it on Xbox, but I just haven't had a chance to play it. and Guild Wars, which is similar to Diablo. You're questing around, and this feels a bit like that as well. You're questing around, you building up your stats. In Diablo, you buy equipments, building up your stats. You're getting experience, and the way it's done in here, it's not like Diablo. You have to keep doing repeatedly things so that you gain the experience. So this one is like in the great way that you don't need to do that, and feels like that. My number 12 is Mycelia. See, I did tell you that my top 20 has got a mix of things. You'll see. Mycelia is a really fun puzzle. Again, deck building. So your cards that you draft and then build your deck, and the cards goes to on top of the deck, so you don't have to wait and then wait the chance for that card to arrive again. You can just combo it with your next action, what you're going to do next. And that's not the only reason why I like it. And your objective is to try to get rid of G-drops on your board. So you have to do it by having cards that let you remove it completely or move it because there's one tile that you can move it into that actually removes the dewdrops.
Yeah, it's like a portal to the shrine or the place where they go.
And another unique thing is that the dewdrop will be collected in the shrine, and then once the shrine is full, depending on the number of players, how many dewdrops, then the dice get rolled. So it's got a really cool board, and the dice get rolled, and then your board gets filled depending on what is rolled, and then what cards, kind of like that shrine card that you use that game. Yeah. There's a basic version of the game as well, and there's an advanced version. And it's just fun little puzzle. Again, this is kind of like multiplayer solitaire. Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple of cards which interact and you're going from the same pool, but it's a very multiplayer solitaire race.
Yes.
But a very clever little one because, the board is split up into different colours of tiles, and you could try to specialise on cards that remove things from like the blue squares or something like that. You just got to make something which balances out.
Amazing artwork as well. So very cute.
It is very cute. You get a good view of that on the front here. There's a whole lot of little cartoonish mushrooms that look really cute.
Highly recommend it, and family would play this again. I could see that. I'm hoping that this is going to be on Board Game Arena. So just it's a good Board Game Arena game, I think.
Yes, by the same theory as After Us. Worked very well.
And that's Mycelia. My number 11 is Aldebaran Duel.
I get to talk after this one.
Yes. Sorry, Tarrant. You can always talk.
I can always talk.
You can always talk. So this is an Essen release, an Essen pickup, and a game by Vladimir Suchi. Now, wait. Yes, Vladimir Suchi has got other games that they release, like the Evacuation. That's his big release. Yep.
And the new version of Shipyard. So we had a very busy Essen for old Vladimir.
Exactly. Well, he's always busy, like he's there with his son. And anyways, this is not published by Delicious Games, but this is published by a different company. And this is a dual version. I haven't heard a lot about Aldebaran Duel. I think it's slightly underrated. This is a dual, obviously dual. It's a dual game. Not that I know. I don't think there is a non-dual version of the game.
Again, I haven't heard of one, much like Orion. I haven't gone searching.
So this is kind of like a track advancement game, and card drafting. So lots of hate drafting there. And you build your tableau. It's a wonderful world feeling.
I thought it was very splendory.
Tarrant, yes, that is also correct. So kind of like between Splendor and It's a Wonderful World. So you kind of like draft card differently, but then you want to build something. Once you build something, then the cost of the next card you play would be reduced by whatever cards you have. But you also then pay whatever resources. You can use cards. Rather than building it, you can discard it for the resource, which is like It's a Wonderful World.
That's the Wonderful World-y thing. The primary way of playing your resources is every card has one of the 3 or one of the 4 resources on it, and you play it for that.
Yes.
The splendory thing is that when you build the production cards, it starts to make all the other ones cheaper. And then there's probably about 5 different types of cards that... there's about 5 different types of ways to then go chasing points.
Yeah.
And... for a 2-player game, you're probably going to you're probably going to try to specialize in
Things.
in a couple of those, but then because it's a two-player game, it just gives your opponent the opportunity to take all the cards you need for that and then just spend them on resources. So it actually gets really tight and
It gets really
pretty
tight.
brutal.
It is. That's why this is in my list, and this is great. Like, if you like Vladimir Suchi, I think this is a bit different than his other games. It's clearly lighter than these typical heavier Euro games, but I think this is a good contender if you like his games, if you like duel games, and you like that sort of like engine building, resource building, track advancement. And on top of that, there's this track, kind of like military. So it's the tug of war part of the game, where you're trying to have the token to come your way to gain more points than the other player.
Yeah, and it really balances out across the game as well, because military and points income, all those things are going to generate over and over. But if you focus on those, you're not going to have very much production, and that's going to harm your ability to make more cards later. So, it's really, it didn't make my top 10, but I am really impressed with the design of this one.
Fair enough. Aldebaran Duel. Please play it.
All right, so now we come to our top 10s. So we're going to go back and forward. I'll go first. We'll do my 10, then Stella's, and we'll go back and forward until you find out.
Yes! And Tarrant has finally talked. Well, not that you haven't, as you said.
But I will talk. I will talk plenty, and I will. Give you my views. And I alluded to this before when we mentioned After Us. I think it has been a very good year for low interaction Euros, but you will see a very decidedly medium interaction trend across my top 10. There's some level of medium interaction really across almost all of them.
And if you have been following our top games of each month, we've done it from January, so it's not necessarily that is the order, or necessarily I will pick the game, because some of the games are prototype, which we can't pick. Some of the games obviously haven't been published in the world yet, and it's our taste also. It might different, and then we might play the games again, so I don't know.
Yeah, the more you play something, the more you see other things that come that might be lying underneath, and so I think it's you get a pretty good guide out of our by the month, but the longer it goes on and the more we play it, taste may change up and down.
All right, let's start with your number 10.
My number 10 is Fable the Spirit Lands. So we're seeing this one again, and this is certainly one that grew on me further across multiple plays. You alluded to what was going on before. It has that century feel where you're trying to get things and get effects which convert them up to the stronger ones, but then you also have to spend those to bring things into play. What I like from a medium interaction standpoint is every turn after you take your action, you have to pick one of the 3 terrain types and move all of the meeples belonging to anybody which are on those tracks. And so it really creates this situation across the course of 10 rounds where you watch what other players are doing, you position yourself so that you're going to get free movements off them, because the movement is what's going to give you a lot of your more powerful actions and your extra actions. And you want to try to line things up so that they don't benefit your opponent, or time things so that a card goes away before your opponent can get into it. And while you're timing all of that, you're also building up your own little engine with these extra powers and things that come into play. So it's very clever that way.
Very clever.
And you add to that the fact that the winner simply is the person who has the most red books, with a tiebreaker for most green. I always like a game that, I always find it interesting when it's like a low points game or a different way of going about winning. It's not a big point salad. You don't get rewarded for everything. It kind of all has to fold into this one thing. And so those make this a very, very thinky little game. And it grew on me over multiple plays. It definitely did.
Well, I haven't actually seen this a lot on social media.
Yeah, neither have I.
Yeah, so we certainly choose our games purely based on what we like, not on obviously what's popular and what's out there, and I really think that this game deserves more chance to play.
Yeah.
Looking back on our top 10 games of last year or top games of the month, occasionally people were like, oh yeah, I've like after a year, like, God, actually I've seen this, like what was that one? It's like, it was really good. I really enjoy it. It's like, thanks for mentioning it. So I'm hoping that, obviously this is not for everyone, right? Like our taste is different. It's very objective. It's objective? Subjective?
Subjective.
Subjective.
I like to think it's subjective.
Sorry, very subjective, so it's not objective at all.
This is the absolute truth.
Oh, wow. But it's kind of like, it's one of those that obviously, it's obviously obvious. Obviously obvious that it is subjective. But I've always tried to give you our honest opinions on the games that we really like and why. My number 10 is Earth. Lots of engine building, lots of tile placement as well, and
card placement.
Card placement and tile
effectively tile placement.
Well, the mechanic is called tile placement.
Yeah, the mechanic is tile placement.
But with cards, tile placement with cards. I don't know.
Earth is your number 10.
Yeah, that was it. That was what we're talking about. Earth's my number 10. I love games with simple actions. I've mentioned before Kutnahora, so you just like actions driven by only these things.
Those cards, those
cards, 5 or 6,
cards.
5 or 6 actions. Things like Arc Nova, it's similar things as well. Like actions driven by simply 5 cards in Arc Nova. In Earth, there are 4 different actions that actually drive your turns, and other players got benefit from the action that you choose. So interactions coming from that. I mean, apart from that, it's not really a lot of other interactions. You do your own puzzle in your own area, tableau area. But that actually, and then you kind of look like, oh, that player would benefit more with the passive action that I do. Like, do I really want to do this? And there are multiple common objectives as well that you're trying to achieve by placing your cards or tile placement mechanic in certain locations. So you need to make 4x4 grid, and lots of cards that you can get. It's like Arc Nova, Terraforming Mars style, and then you can try to combo each other to gain the most points. So because of that, it is my number 10 of 2023. Hopefully you liked it as well.
It's a very popular game.
So I found out first time about it at Gen Con. Somebody actually mentioned it, like, hey Stella, I watch it. It's actually one of our viewers, and hey Stella, I think you're gonna like this one. So I went there, and I was like, that's the first time I found out about Earth. Like, oh, it wasn't released at that time. I think it was not this year's Gen Con, it was last year's Gen Con, and since then I had my eyes on it. Like, I think this is something that I'm gonna like, which I did. So that's Earth.
Number 9 for me is Maps of Mystera. And for me, this is one of the cleverest new mechanisms I've seen for the year. That's what I really like about this. It's so hard to put a new twist on things these days.
Yes.
But with Maps of Mystera, I've lamented sometimes that there are so many tile placement games out there, just building a city, building Acropolis had you building up, and various ones have different types of drafting mechanisms. But ultimately it comes to building your own little city, and I tend to find that, again, the level of interaction not medium enough for me in that sort of game. What I really like about Maps of Mystera is it takes a new and novel approach to bring some interaction into a tile placement game. And really there's 3 ways that you've got your own map, a common map, and when you're placing tiles, you place them on your own map, so you're building up your own grid, and out on the central grid, what you place, you put those tiles out on the central grid, and as soon as 2 players or 1 player have placed the same type of tile in the same square twice in a row, it flips over and it permanently becomes that. So early in the game, what's out there could be switching, but as soon as there's a confirmed one, it flips over and it stays that way forever. And then there are ways of scoring points on your personal board and on the central board, and a combination of the 2. So you've got your own private goals that you're just solitaring on your own board, trying to make these objectives. And then between the two boards, you score points based on how many matches you've got. And then on the main board, there's one mechanism where you want to claim a big area of the same type of terrain. And then all the terrains also have powers about how you move around the board, because you can only place within range of where you've moved to. And just the combination of those three things, it's not a perfect game because the tiles can be a little fiddly and you can still get a bit solitary at times. But that combination of things is really, really clever, and I think that makes it stand out above any other pure tile placement game that's out there.
Quite enjoy it as well. It is on Board Game Arena, and those trying to match your tiles with the one in the common. So this common area, this your area. I've never seen that before. My number 9 is Forest Shuffle. This is a game that keeps growing and growing in likeness for me. The more I play it, the more like, okay, I can do this. So many cards that you can combo together on your tableau, and each time you try different strategy, different ways of winning. I got this from Gen Con. I think this is an Essen release. So it might have a soft release in Gen Con. It's also on Board Game Arena. We played many times in Board Game Arena, and it has some upgrades and improvement on Board Game Arena as well. That's how much I know about this. So tableau building, I think this is the game that you would probably need to give a chance. The first time you play, there are lots of icons, and to be honest, the explanations are on in 14 cards or something like that. It's not that easy to see. In Board Game Arena, you probably learn more about this game than those cards on what the icons mean. But give a chance another, the second play, the third play, and so on, and you get to recognize what each one means, and that way you can build your strategy in so many different ways. And this is just great game.
Yeah, it's because you're building up trees and animals and trying to make sets and things that combo off each other, and there are a lot of them. It does take multiple plays to work out the sorts of strategies and what you're looking for. It shares a number of things in common with Archaeos Society, which we played for the first time a couple months earlier, in that A, the game can end abruptly based on a draw of cards, and B, when you're paying, you have to pay cards. Cards are both the currency and what you pay, but when you pay them, they go into the common tableau where you could get them again, other players could get them again. So it has a lot of that Archaeos Society mechanisms in there. I'm sure it was inspired by it. No, this has certainly grown on me across the course of the year as well.
I met the designer, Kosh, at Essen. I was like, oh my God, I love your games. And I was like, oh, so what's the best combination? He wouldn't tell me. I mean, it's probably there's no such answer, right? And it's I think it's the deer. If you really make the deer work, that can... Well, Tarrant wins probably 80% of the time. So Tarrant almost always wins, if not 90%. I do have a pretty good record on this. I know. So I was like, is there an expansion coming? They didn't say anything, but I had a feeling that there's going to be expansion coming. So don't quote me on that, but I'm hoping there's going to be expansion. Ta-da!
Number 8 for me, here it is back, The Mind Soulmates. So I also thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was such a huge improvement on the original series, Mind, because it took it from a
limited communication.
It took it from a completely simple party game that was kind of, it came and went and it filled a gap, and it turned it into something which had that Crew sort of feel to it. So, I say it as being like the Crew because, all right, in the Crew you'll deal out the cards, and sometimes it's unwinnable and sometimes it's easy, but on the balance of things, you're going to have to do a little bit of thinking, and it's the sort of thing you could just sit down at a table and play over a number, spend an hour playing it if you have a bit of time to fill, and you're going to have some interesting things to think through. And so this really hits that same vibe.
Playing 2 players, playing high player counts, they're all great.
Yeah, and I think some of the things you want to think about, you see 2 cards, you see 2 numbers, you know that there's a number someone else might have had before, and they are being slow about it, so you can start to deduce. So it's just got those little bits of deduction that made old school trick taking games, and the crew and things like that are really good. So
Yes.
yeah, this is, we mentioned it before. We mentioned it when it was in our top games of the month as well. Don't just write this off as yet another version of the Mine.
Absolutely.
This has a very, very different feel and a very good feel.
My number 8 is Septima. Now, this is the deluxe edition from the Kickstarter. This game, it's also thematic. It's about witches trying to collect potions and trying to do spells.
Trying to do good without attracting the
crowd's angriness. Angriness.
Without arousing suspicion.
Yeah, so this is a kind of like medium to heavier Euro game, and what I like most about it is, I wouldn't say semi-cooperative, but there are times where, okay, first on a round you play cards, like similar to Good Nahora, like duh again, my favorite, right?
The standard thing, play the limited
thing.
cards, and you have to play them to do your action.
Yes, so this time there are more cards, probably like 8 or something like that, 7. So a few cards that you play, and there's one card that will mimic another card that you've played, but essentially they're all the different actions. More than 4 actions, yes, but when you actually select it, you reveal all at once. All players will reveal their selections at once in that round. And if you match with somebody, then you get to advance on a certain track, which potentially give you bonus. But you also gain suspicion, which actually not very good, but you just have to manage it well, because that might disadvantage you at certain degrees. But it's well manageable. Yeah. So if you're not matching with the other player, you match with another with the board. So each round the board will have something that you could match with, and you can see the next rounds what's going to come up. So it's slightly planning. So that's great, right? Not completely random. So that's where you can advance in your track and then trying to gain the most benefit, because if you're at the top, you can potentially gain lots of points.
Yeah, it's a game with, it's got that interesting learning curve where you've got to work out how you can definitely get better actions and be much more efficient if you are matching with people and matching with the board. But the consequence for going too hard on that and getting really high suspicion is quite severe.
Yeah.
So you have to be very careful about how you balance it and when you take those risks.
At the end of the round, there are a few end of round things being resolved, and that's where, when you have high suspicion that might actually bite you in the back, which you have to manage, and then you can gain more engine building opportunity, but it also will means that the more of the witch you have, which is the asymmetric power, you can complete more objectives in your secret objective cards. So it's kind of like, I like it when your end objective combo with something else as well, and I think that's great.
Yeah, there's some pretty strong, I would, the unique powers you get through the witch cards and spells and things, I would consider them medium to high in terms of their rule-breaking, game-breakingness. So you can make some pretty powerful combinations which give you a real lane in what, at the start of the game, looks like a very slow build-up of actions.
Really slow. And everything is feels so hard. Like, resources are really hard to get. You have to plan ahead which resource that you can get. Like, you can't just get any resource. You have to wait until the round is sitting at certain area, certain part of the round to gain that resource easily. And you need to position your meeple on the board, like, strategically as well, at the right time, at the right place. Really good.
Number 7 for me, and we're back. We're seeing this one again, Archaeos Society. I think this is a Paolo Mori game, and he is really good at this medium, doing these light to medium games that have these elements of luck, but they feel like hobby board games. It kind of has this real playfulness about it, and Libertalia is the other one he's very well known for. These are games that I always get tricked into thinking, they're light sort of gamer party games, and then when I try to explain them to
6 people,
to 6 people who are more novices, I realise, hang on, no, this is actually a bit heavier than I realised. But no, this is really good. It is kind of, we mentioned Ethnos before. It follows the same mechanism. And to be honest, had I played Ethnos a few years ago, even though I probably would prefer this to Ethnos, had I played Ethnos before, this would just be like, oh, it's just an Ethnos re-implementation. But this was the first time I'd seen that mechanism of trying to build sets and then having to give up all of your cards when you make a set. And it was a very revolutionary thing for me. I think it's just such a clever way of going about what is otherwise a simple draw cards and make sets type.
It's making difficult decisions.
Yeah. It has that, again, we mentioned it with Forest Shuffle. It has the fear that as you go on, the round could end at any time. And it works in Forest Shuffle as well. I like how, because it is a light, it's a light set collecting, combo collecting kind of game, having that fear of knowing that, do I use up a limited capacity of my hand waiting for this, or do I give it up because it's on a knife's edge of whether I actually get the card I want, works really well in this sort of light game. So I think this, you'll have the Ethnos versus Arceus Society debate, and the same way you could have the Quicksand versus Kites debate. I played Kites first. It was revolutionary where I played it, and they're fairly similar. Yeah. Which is why Quicksand would probably be in my top 10 if Kites hadn't been here last year, to be honest. But that's sort of off the point. This is... we
can talk about anything. What did you have for breakfast?
A bagel. It was a nice one. This does come... I like the different sets. So there are 12 sets that you use 6 of in each game as well, and they all come with different sorts of vibes about where they have specializations. You have different tracks to go up on, which all have different flavors. So lots of different combinations for something that is light and fun.
My number 7 is Tiwanaku. 2 words to describe it. Well, 3 words. No, 4 words. Competitive puzzle deduction Sudoku. So that's basically what it is about. So it is puzzle deduction. It has got that Sudoku feeling where I actually haven't played Sudoku a lot, to be honest. And I love puzzle deduction. I'm not good at it, but it just feels so satisfying when you're able to guess something. Yeah. You work out, there is, like, the board comes empty first. And not empty, just like the sum. Like, you get to reveal the terrain first, what color, and you advance based on what it is, like how many terrains you guess, and you need to guess it in certain orders to get more points. And then once all terrains is gone, that's the end of the game, or all terrains are filled. But then in the middle, at certain points, you can guess the crop that's on it. It's numbered from 1 to 5. So... and it's based on contiguous color of that same terrain. So let's say if there's 3 of the blue ones, the crop would be what? Number 1, 2, and 3. And each crop cannot be adjacent to the crop of the same color, orthogonally or diagonally.
Yes.
It is just so clever. I just want to play it again and again. There's the beginning version, so it's smaller map, and there's a bigger map as well, and there are different scenarios that you can play, obviously, and it has got this really clever wheel that reveals, okay, at coordinate this and this, it will be this terrain, or it will be this number crop.
Yeah, this is one of those games where I'm sure in the end you'll be able to get an app and any number of scenarios, but they've got a physical wheel that you can make the coordinates and see it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you always when the big puzzle deduction games come out towards the end of the year, I know you always gravitate towards those.
I love puzzle deduction.
Yep, and it's really good.
There's a
lot of cleverness to this one because, as you alluded, you are revealing the terrains to get the clusters, so you know what crops are going to be in them. And you want to be revealing lots of different terrain types because that's going to earn you the most points if you generalize. But then you want to get the information and park your meeples on the locations where there are high value crops and where you know what the crops are.
Yeah.
And you want to diversify on crops as well.
Yep.
There's like a...
Yeah. You need to position your meeple where it is so you can only guess where your meeple is.
Yeah. So there's an impressive amount of gamer tactics interlaced around the puzzle deduction elements of this game.
There's one other thing that I really like. Yes, it helps if you're good at puzzle deduction. Tarrant is like super, super duper good compared to me. But yet there's also one more mechanic, alluded to it earlier, mechanic that would actually help with somebody that is not probably that great at puzzle deduction, which is as soon as your last terrain is placed on the board, that's the game end trigger. So if you don't want somebody that can guess really good at everything, before that happens, end the game. And that just stops it. And then if you are already ahead, and then that's a good way. Obviously, otherwise, why would you want to stop it if you're not ahead? But if you know somebody already work out which one is which, because you get a lot of points by guessing the crop number, especially higher number, and you just stop the game there. That's like, oh. And it's kind of like happens after repeated plays. Like, oh, I didn't realize it until, oh, actually, I can do this. So that's Tiwanaku. If you like puzzle deduction, this. Hopefully they will release more scenarios though, because once you know the scenarios, then I don't know if can you play it again. Maybe if you've after a while you forget about it, and then you play it again. Yeah. You might say this game again.
Yes, for the fourth time you might say this game again. Côte Nahora City of Silver. So this I spoke about it a little before. This is a medium to high interaction Euro. Almost everything that you're doing is time. You get the most points if you can time it or place it based on what someone else is doing. So you need to time your incomes. Every time you get income, you get a whole lot of money and coins. And how much that gets goes up or down based on the economies. So I mentioned the economies before. There's 6 different things that have a price, and those prices are going to be constantly going up and down based on supply and demand. If things are happening which bring more people to the town, the price will go up, but if you construct a building which makes it, then the price will go down. And you need to time your income turns so that they are most efficient. You need to, as people start to place tiles out on the board, it's going to make it more or less expensive to place other tiles around it, which becomes important because at the end of the game, the points come from matching symbols on adjacent building tiles. Down in the mines, again, as you place, it becomes more expensive on adjacent spaces, and you get your points for area controls down there, like area controls on each of the rows. And there's the cathedral where there are some really, really game-breaking abilities.
Oh, yes.
It's a surprising mechanism because there's 10 abilities and each of them resolves once and in a specific order. And if you are really gunning for one of them to make your strategy work, you have to time it so perfectly to make sure you get that. And the cleverest thing about this that makes this work is that it uses the brass mechanism where you get 2 actions, one after the other. Brass is such a game of timing, and the fact that you get 2 actions in a row, and if you contrive it right in brass, you can get 3 or 4 in a row because you can be last in turn order and then make yourself first in turn order if you do. That's brass. But because you can do 2 in a row, it lets you gear up to make those things happen. You don't have to do something and leave it open for 3 players. You get that chance as long as you set yourself up for it. It's something, more games, there's a lot of games that would benefit from it. It's the game where whoever sits to the left of the player who is worst at the game is going to win because the other player is going to leave all the good options open for them. Having those 2 actions in a row is what counteracts that. And I think a lot of really clever Euros use that. So that is what, for me, makes Côte Nahora really great. And because so much of what's going on is the economy and what people are placing, you can't solve the game. It's going to be different every time. So
my number 6 is Marvel Age of Heroes. So this has got very similar feel to Lords of Waterdeep. Similar designer, similar feeling.
Same designer, in fact.
Sorry, similar.
Shares one of the designers of Lords of Waterdeep.
It's similar designers, but shares one of the designers. So this has got the feeling of completing mission, like it's okay if you haven't played lots of Waterdeep. So it's a worker placement game where you're gaining resources to complete missions, right? So, but this has got different phases of the game rather than, all over the place. So it's got different sections. So you gotta have to make sure you have the right ingredients, not ingredients, resources. Let's cook something. It's basically it. Resources to complete your missions, right? Now, the twist on this one is that the worker placement spaces are actually created by the players. So you play the cards to create worker placement space. Now, I think that's great. That's awesome. Every single game is unique. I mean, it's not completely different, the cards. It's kind of like combinations of different things. I just contradict myself. It's like it's different combinations of different actions, but still it's like in different combination, different categories.
Yeah, and that was something Lords of Waterdeep did as well. Lords of Waterdeep had the buildings, and when you placed a building, you then benefited when people went on it as the game went on. This, you alluded to it having different phases. So there's the top half of the board, and you do your worker placement on there, but one of the spaces you can go is onto the X-Jet, because this is X-Men.
X-Men, yes.
It's an X-Men one. You go onto the jet, and then the jet will take you down to the bottom half, and then the order that you placed on the jet is the order that you worker place on the bottom part, and that's where you complete all of the missions.
Yeah, it has asymmetric players' powers as well. So depending on the player counts, you may control one or more heroes, and those heroes have got powers that you can upgrade and has got different abilities.
Yep, and there's also scenarios as well. So you pick a set of villains, and that will determine how long the game will run and what sorts of missions are going to come out.
I think this is one of the games that I haven't actually seen a lot of in the media. I don't know why. I mean, if people see, my theory is that it's got Marvel or X-Men theme. So it's not just another IP game. Maybe, it can be totally rubbish what you said here, but maybe that's why it's definitely not just the theme game. It's actually a great game.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will look at it and say, it feels 60% like Lords of Waterdeep.
And then why have this and not Lots of Waterdeep,
But I think it is a little bit better than Lords of Waterdeep as well. I think it's a lot of fun, and you can make some big broken combos.
Oh, yes.
And big things that are going to generate a whole lot of points. Like you can create a situation where you go somewhere and then you score points based on matching places that you go on, and you build your actions around that.
Yeah. So I would recommend, if you like Lords of Waterdeep, if you like worker placement, then Age of Heroes it is. All
right, up to the getting towards the pointy ends. So number 5 for me is a game about a creature which has a pointy end that you have to avoid. Sorry, that was terrible.
It's correct. Apiary.
Apiary is my number 5. So one of the 2 big releases from Stonemaier this year. I love how this game looks. I really like the vibrant colours in here
as well.
It's the Space Bees game. It's probably the least interactive of the games in my top 10. If you think about the everything I was saying about having medium interaction, this is a game, it's got that euphoria bumping style, so you can kind of, in most cases, do whatever action you want. But for me, I like there's an element of opportunity and rationing your most powerful actions. And I find it, and it's essentially a tableau building game. You're building up a hive of honeycombs that you are buying off the board, and trying to find combinations that work, and then trying to break those combos and get a whole lot of points. And it's very satisfying. That's
very.
When you come to a game with, for me, a game where the interaction is lower, I can still really enjoy it if the combos are satisfying, and I really find that the case here. And the thing the thing that works best for me is rationing your most valuable actions. Every time you place a bee, when it comes back, it gets stronger. And once it is and it does more actions, then once it's at strength 4, You essentially do a double action when you place it out. Each of the action spaces has one sort of mega powerful thing that you can do with a number 4. And you're only likely to get about 3 or 4 of those actions across the course of the game, and so you really have to plan for and be really careful about how you use those. And you can use them to get honeycomb pieces that have big end game objectives. You can use them to play down cards that give you end game objectives.
Engine build, multi-use of cards.
Yeah, so it has a very satisfying thing, and you've got to take your opportunities. Cards or honeycombs and hexes in particular may not be there very long, or your opportunity to get one from the more expensive end depends on placing when you've got that moment when someone else has a large B in there. It's got that little bit of positive player interaction in that way. So,
positive player interaction.
And it plays really quickly as well. So, and I think it's a very satisfying game to play. And so that's why it's my number 5.
Stone Meyer Games done great releases this year.
They've had a good year, yeah. That's they've had a couple of Expeditions didn't make my top 10, but it wasn't far out. That was also, I put it in a very similar category. It was very satisfying engine building, little essentially card tableau building. But yeah, for me, Apiary, number 5.
My number 5 is Scholars of the South Tigris. This is the series of the South now.
Yes, this is number 2 of 3.
2 of 3. And what I love most about it is, number 1, well, surprise, surprise, card play, Concordia card play, where your action is driven by cards.
Yep, and you do get to build the pool here, like in Concordia.
That's correct. And number 2, it has got such a great dice puzzle. All right, I normally gravitated less towards dice, rolling dice especially, because I feel like I roll certain numbers that does not benefit me. If higher number is good, I usually roll low. If low number is good, I usually roll high. It's just like dice hates me, I swear. And it's correct, right? We watch Squid Games, the actual real people Squid Games, and then
sorry, I'm jaded. Go on.
No, actually, wait. I don't want to say it because it might be spoiler.
Okay.
Anyway, somebody says about rolling dice, like, oh, I usually roll dice in this number, and then it's actually correct. So, I don't know. It's like the universe giving people dice. I don't know. It hasn't happened to you. This is like slightly not talking about this. But anyways, this is different. This has got lots of modification power.
Yes,
so that you...
Yes, because the actions, when you roll the dice, you need them to be in a certain colour and number, and you'll gain a whole lot of workers, and you can spend white workers to make them a better number, or you can spend coloured workers to make them a different
colour dice. So certain action requires certain number or colour, certain number or colour of dice, and there is an income track as well that you have to kind of like, it's like lots of difficult decisions. There's a lot of things that you want to do, you want to achieve. There's income track that you want to push out, but there's also other things that you want that is benefiting to you, and you want a lot of dice. There's income that give you dice, income that give you workers. There's also scholars that you can contribute to everyone, and then you get benefit when other people use it. So I always like that sort of like positive player interactions.
Yes, if you put a scholar out there, because the scholars have this interesting mechanism where they each can do certain translations, and if you are trying to complete a script that's in Chinese, then you might find a scholar who can go from Chinese to Greek, and then another who can go from Greek to Arabic, because it's set in the South Tigris, and you've got to get them all to Arabic. So if you see a gap in the market for a certain language, you can bring that one into play, and then other players either have to benefit you by using your scholar, or maybe go and get their own scholar of that. So that's quite a clever interplay between the players.
By the way, we haven't actually specifically mentioned much about the theme of each game, but we will have top games with the best theme of 2023. So we'll do that video soon. So that's where we're going to delve in more about the theme, why the themes really works, why it's so thematic to the game.
My number 4 is Thinky Card Filler of the Year, which is Goblin Vaults from Thunderworks. So I've always tried to look for little card games that maybe don't get a lot of attention, but make for an interesting card, multiplayer card puzzle. And for me, Goblin Vaults this year is not only that game, but it's all the way up in my top 5. It is a game where you start with a hand of cards. So the theme of this game is that it's a game goblins play in prison.
Yeah.
So you've got your hand of cards and you're trying to get certain cards down into the highest scoring tableau that you can. And that involves having rows and columns that meet certain objectives. So you might get points for having rows add up to a certain number, or it'll vary from game to game. And what card you get and how much it costs you is based on a little trick-taking. It's not quite trick-taking in the traditional sense, but it's a little trick kind of mechanism. Essentially, there will be cards that you can bid on, and you play a card from your hand, and whoever bids the highest with a trump that's going to change from time to time throughout the round gets to take that one, maybe with some extra points sitting on it, while everyone else takes whatever is below it. And if you play a card that isn't winning the trick, you have to pay for the privilege of doing that because you get that card back. So it's hard to explain very efficiently, but there's just these clever little interplays on how you either get a card from your hand straight into your tableau, or how you bid on a card and get it into your tableau for the highest score. So I think it is actually probably maybe a little bit more than a Thinky filler. It's a step above Thinky, but I think it's really clever, and I really enjoy the challenge that it brings. I think it's not like anything else that I've played, and I think it's really clever.
It also complements, I don't know, and not that it matters to you, it complements Thunderworks, Ulos worlds. This is part of it, like the role play and role play adventures and so on.
Yeah, you see some of the same art, the same fonts, the same characters all sort of coming to the fore.
My number 4 is Nucleum. This is an Essen, or was an Essen 2023 release. The action that you can do, you can buy them. It's like in the form of action tiles, and you can discuss...
Concordia mechanism.
Concordia. So if you have games like Concordia, just give it to me if it's decent, or put it in my top games. Not really. Yes.
Probably will though. It does. It's very much that thing. You've got in fact, it's probably the closest to Concordia of all the ones we've got here, because you've got your tiles, you play them for the actions, you buy more, and the more you play, the more income you get. But you're giving up the tiles a lot more in this game than you would in Concordia.
And you're giving up the tiles to actually make network. It's also network building. It's kind of like a brass filling.
It's got a very brass feeling to the map.
Mm-hmm. And I just feel like that tile as well that you play, after you play, you also put it in a certain way, and that actually affects your income as well. So all interlocking, you need to kind of like retrieve your tiles, but then your income might not be as good if you have built that income on the track. So it's not just retrieving it, but actually those kind of games, sometimes like with Nahora, you just retrieve it because it's at the end of the round. And this is you retrieve it when you think is right. So it's not limited by, okay, it's the end of the round and you have to retrieve it. No, but you have an options like apiary as well. You can retrieve it not because it's at the end of the round, but it is when you want it, when it's more strategic for you to do that, or you think it's the most strategic. And
in both cases, Nucleum and apiary, you get less income if you retrieve more rapidly. In Nucleum, there's 3 income tracks and you can move up on them, but you get the lower of where your income marker is versus how many tiles you've put down. Yeah. Which is a good balance. And you might wonder why apiary is not on Stella's list yet. It's an interesting thing to worry. Yeah. Let's talk about Nucleum. Yes, that's Nucleum. So first time I found out about it, oh wow, like nuclear powered, and they announced quite recently that there's going to be Australian expansion. I'm like, woo,
want to play the Australian Nucleum expansion. Hopefully that comes out soon. Hopefully it comes to Australia. I mean, surely you would think that if it's Australian expansion, it surely will come to Australia. No?
Hopefully so. I think what this game does, what I like here, so there's a lot of things in here that feel like bits of other games, and then there's one that I guess the closest analog, I haven't really seen anything exactly like it, but the closest analog is Great Western Trail in terms of how the secondary scoring market works. And I think that's probably, it's a great, it's a great point of difference. You do certain actions that give you stars rather than points. And then when you choose to do your income, you cash in those stars for a spot on a multiplier track and an end game objective track. And you can try to time it so that you've got a lot at once and move a long way up that track, but you've got to time it carefully.
That's additional thing that you need to plan ahead. And so yes, those Concordia mechanics and the difficult decision whether you want to sacrifice your action tile. You can buy the next one. There's certain restrictions to it, but yes, you want to sacrifice it or you want to keep it to actually do the actions. Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding. Sorry. It's like it's a Western theme.
Is it?
Music.
Okay. We're into the top three, into our top threes. And my number 3 is Great Western Trail, Argentina. For me, it's the jewel in the Great Western Trail crown. This is probably the only one that's on the border for me as a 2023 release, because I think it had a 2022 Essen and then was starting to be released across
the world.
Various retails towards the December, January type of period. We certainly first played it in January, and for me, this takes classic Great Western Trail and adds that medium interaction I'm looking for. There's two things in particular that I really love about what this game adds. And the one which I like the most is the competitive placement in the foreign ports. That was always the fact that you could always, without penalty, go where someone else had gone in Great Western Trail was the one thing which brought it a little bit too much towards the solitaire side. But here you get extra points by being first to get to these ports, and I like that it's added that. It adds a timing mechanism to the game, and I also really like that they've added this extra way of shortening your route. The train track in Great Western Trail Argentina allows you to cut off and shortcut the end of the route, and that potentially gives you a way of doing really fast laps at the end of the game, which can then really tie into that timing challenge against the other players on those foreign ports. So I really like what Argentina brings to the game. It takes some of the things which are... It's a bit more forgiving than the base game in terms of how much money you've got, but it takes some of the things which made Great Western Trail so different to a lot of the other games out there, and I think it really emphasises those differences plus adds a competitive element to it. So for me, this is, it really... I was actually originally not... when they announced...
That's true.
When they announced the trilogy of Great Western Trails, I was like, okay, I like Great Western Trail, but then there's just another one.
We need it, yeah.
But the things that those new Great Western Trails added to switch the game up were...
brilliant.
Really at the right level to make them feel like different games. And this for me is the best one of the lot. So, yeah.
Maybe we could have I feel like it's slightly cheating, or not slightly cheating. It's probably not fair if we pick all of them. Maybe not. My number 3 is Expeditions. So this is in the world of Scythe, but doesn't play like Scythe.
Correct.
At all. It just looks like Scythe. There's a lot of people like, is it like Scythe? No, not at all. It's just in the universe of Scythe. So earlier I mentioned Sonmai Games did well this year, and Expeditions is here.
Yes, I think I mentioned it was slightly outside my top 10, but it's, number 3 for you.
the games is like the turns are really snappy. I mean, at least when we like play it every time, and it's not really what I imagine it to be. I was imagining it to be more of a 4X, more like Scythe. Of course, like jaded by Scythe, but it's more of deck building. I mean, is that like me in deck building?
It was a real shock to me as well, right? When we started when we started playing, it's got this big map and you're moving your mechs around, but that's only like 30% of the game.
Yes.
It really is this little, I'll say it again, a Concordia style pool building game, because you get these cards and they go in your hand and then you play them and have to reset them.
You play it at the right time.
Yes. It's not playing it for its action. It's playing it for playing it at the right time for the combos.
Yeah, so this is it again, where the game does not dictate the end of the round. So it's in the form of cubes. So you do the actions, and then if you think you want to reset the position of the cube, because you can't
skip the same.
So you can't skip. You can't skip.
You do 2 out of the 3 actions every turn.
Yes. So you decide when you want to reset the cubes, and then do that action. Like start again from the beginning, and then that's where you kind of like then retrieve your cards. And you gotta have the right cards, and then play it at the right time, and sometimes the right position as well. And at what point, at certain points that you want to give up the cards to do for your scoring or for your engine.
Yes.
It's just really great. It's just like so many things you can do, so many different ones. The main board, the map is also at different configuration. It's at random.
Yep. Semi-random, I think.
It's semi-random. So, which I like. If it's totally random, it's like, oh no, this feels like a beginning tile. It needs to be used first, closer to the starting positions or whatever. So semi-random. Yep. And there's also the star mechanic like side where you need to fulfill certain objective and then use up one of your stars, and that triggers the end. So do 4 of this, or do 7 of that, or have this token, things like that. Really impressed with that. I like expeditions more than Scythe, but I like Scythe. I mean, it's 4X game, which I still like because there's a lot of engine building, and this is great.
Yeah, what this game stood out for me, it did something I hadn't actually seen before, which was you were doing that Concordia sort of deck building where it was hand building essentially, or pool building, and you were getting the cards, but then you were having to promote them or get them out of your hand and into your scoring area, which I've seen in deck builders. It was something that
Valley of the Kings
did, and Tyrants of the Underdark did, but I haven't seen it to this extent in a Concordia hand building game. And that kind of stood out for me. Yep.
Difficult decision. Do you want to keep playing this card, give you the benefit, or you want to just take it, trash it, and put it in your scoring pile?
My number 2, and here we go again, Orion Duel. So we saw this way back near the start of the video.
It's number 2.
Yes, I really like a good 2-player abstract, and this is a really good 2-player abstract. We alluded before, you're playing tiles which benefit you but have some tiles of your opponent, and there's the 3 objectives. There's a 4th one, which is be the last one who can legally play a tile. We've never taken it to that point yet, but you've got the 3 objectives, which is make a path, or join up 4 galaxies, or join up 3 black holes with your opponent's tiles. The rules are so simple, and the biggest placement rule is you can't put a color on a galaxy unless it joins to existing tiles of that color, and you can't put a tile on a black hole unless it joins to existing tiles of that color. So it means you can start placing things and try to weave between the dangerous tiles, or you can put tiles down which put your opponent in danger. You've got limited numbers of each of the tile shapes, so most of them have 2 of yours and 1 of the opponent's. A couple of them are smaller, and then there's these ones that are only your colours that you really need to ration and use at the most critical moments. And you can do a fully symmetrical setup, or you can do or you can randomize it, or you can do a setup where the first player places the galaxies, then the second player places the black holes, and that's supposed to counteract the first player benefit. So plays in 15 minutes. Like any good two-player abstract, it's quick and it's elegant to teach and it's very clever. So
very easy rules.
Yeah.
Strategy is like so deep, like the reverse of the complexity of the rules.
Yeah. So no, this one really stands out to me. It's a fantastic game.
My number 2 is Apiary. Ta-da! I might have hinted it before. I did hint it before. And this has got this euphoria bumping mechanics. Love it, love it, love it. Where you decide when you want to end certain things of actions. There's no round in such, but when you think that, okay, that's it, I want to retrieve my workers, and then you activate your production depending on how many workers you retrieve.
Yes, and that's I alluded before, that's the bit that's a little bit Concordia-y as well, because you get more income in Concordia when you pick up more cards, so the longer you wait, the more of that income you get.
So Tarrant's basically said most of the things that I like about Apiary. So that there's so many things that you can do on the board. There's the powerful actions when you bump your workers to the high strength, but then after that you hibernate and then you lose that worker, and then you have to do another action to actually get another worker. You can like do a tight game, for example, you just have 2 workers or something, or even 1, but then you keep retrieving it, but you only activate one thing. It could work, who knows? Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. I wouldn't say who knows, but I've done that before. Like it's really tight engine. You only have 2 workers, and your opponents have 4 workers. But then I keep retrieving it. I keep activating my farm that actually gives me points. So it's like point generating workers, and then just do what's important, and then just focus on those to make those workers high number and more stronger. And this is why, like, card combinations, when you get it right, it just like feels very, very satisfying. So Apiary, I really love it.
We are at the pointiest of the pointy ends. So my favourite game of 2023, Alicat Games and Danny Garcia, is Arborea. This really hits the... Going to fall over?
Yes.
Prop that one up, sorry.
So now everyone knows that this is just the lead of the game.
What an anticlimax. Arborea. So, with all my talk about medium interaction, this really hits the mark. There is a lot of medium Euro interaction in this game. It almost feels, every element of it has that. It has some economy and forces you to make the right choices at the right times. And then you're also kind of doing your own thing, managing worker economy. So there are paths. You've got to step onto these paths and they move along. It's the first time I've sort of seen something like that since that one with the cogs that starts with T. Every game starts with T. Tolkien. It's been a long video. So you're placing workers on these paths, and then you can advance the paths, or other players can advance the paths if they're on them. And you have to step off the path immediately after it advances, whether it's your turn or another player's. And so that adds that fear of, do I wait to get to a stronger part on that action? Or am I worried about the risk that someone else is not going to advance the path, and so I won't get to step off? You have to manage an economy of workers, so you need to be doing actions that will give you workers. There's a big common pool of resources. So the resources, you gain them and you get the first chance to spend them if you really need them, or you can just get points. And the more of that resource is in the pool, the fewer points you get. So it has this economy thing going on. Likewise, there are creatures. You need to get resources to buy cards and creatures to put on the cards, and you do that in certain placement ways to get points. So sometimes you want to move up on endgame scoring multiplier tracks, which means you want to place on a specific path at a specific time because you won't get that opportunity until later, and that's the one that gives you the points. So it's got all these timing things. I love games that have timing like that.
Difficult decision timing.
Yeah, it's got all of that. It is a bit of a point salad thing. You're not going to have your game wrecked by failing to do something, but you're going to miss a good opportunity if you don't take that choice. And so everyone's always thinking, everyone's always in. There's some engine building you can do on different parts of the path.
We've seen different strategies as well. The reason why this game isn't in my top 20 is because of one mechanic that is kind of like Tetris-y, like a tile placement Tetris. And I'm really bad at that. So it's totally just me, because otherwise the rest is great. But that means that I can't really work around special rotations when you place
your ecosystem cards. So yeah, there we go. This one really hits all the interactive points for me, but it stays as a kind of light and productive Euro. It's very bright and vibrant as well. So Arborea.
I want to do the secret reveal as well, like you did.
Okay.
Not secret reveal, but just like delayed reveal.
I'll do the drum roll then.
All right. This game has not been mentioned as Tarrant top games before. Well, maybe not quite. It's the New Zealand version of Great Western Trail, and it's my number 1 game of 2023. This is my favorite of Great Western Trail. Well, Great Western Trail Argentina is close second, but I decided, okay, I can't really, I just want to put one Great Western Trail as one game, one entry.
The greatest Western Trail.
The greatest of the Great Western Trail. That's correct, Karen. Well put, well done. So New Zealand has got the most interesting deck building for me, and it has more focus on the deck building element. It has a separate shipboard where you move around and then you can gain certain things in the shipboard. So there's no more train.
There's no more train.
Track.
It doesn't have that single path on the train.
That's correct,
it's now got a more Euro sort of, more classic Euro sort of, you can move out over the map wherever you want and go for hunting the different benefits.
Different benefits in there. I love it. And that deck building is very satisfying because you get to draw more cards when you play certain cards that you can get by doing certain actions. So it doesn't automatically come to you, but like when you focus on that, you can just like, okay, do this, and then you draw another card, and then just like stack up your engine that way. So I think this is the most complex games out of the 3 Great Western Trail.
I think it has the most extra mechanisms. I don't know if
maybe
it's the most complex.
Yes. That's actually
it
true.
Depends on your view of complexity, I suppose.
It still has Great Western Trail, which games that we love. We've been playing this for a very long time, and it is on Board Game Arena, the basic version of it, which I'm excited about.
It's funny, you can really see our two views in our choices of Great Western Trail. Great Western Trail was a game that that really stood alone and did a lot of things differently. And I've gravitated towards the one that took the things it did differently and kind of amplified them. And you've gravitated towards the one which brought more typical Euro elements into it.
Yes.
Kept what made it unique, but brought some more familiar things into it.
Well put, Tarrant. So that is my number 1 game. Oh my gosh, let's play this after this. Maybe not. There's sheeps and there's ship as well. Not that it matters. And that's it. That's our top 20 and 10 games. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you have a great day, and we'll see you next time.